Hello, Americans. Congress and Pam Bondi are shown faked information, but by their own tool. The differences of guilt, because they were collusions. If we pay attention, if we step back, there were collusions that were only permitted as a collusion slash S. And then America's founders were born. There were collusions against every woman with facts, fact treatment, nature, sense, and sensibilities, only permitted. Otherwise, that body was sensed. The same way against Native Americans. The same way against what would cause that? The same breaching method that forced itself entrenched even with slavery and rolls with it. And then America's founders were born. People get away with standing up and say, oh, America's founders owned slaves. That's exactly why, that's not true. Our founders directed us. They declassified for us to understand that our founders were unknown. And they were behind James Madison and his plan. And they had to counter extort everyone, force everyone to break an extent of the laws that were collusions. The laws, it was either them guilty or the overt criminal enterprises, the private ones, the terrorists, all propagated. Then America's founders were born. To hide behind the difference of that. That's why there's a witch trials place next to Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. Then and now, not by accident, the founding locations across the country. They have been defended, self-value, sense and sensibilities by communicating tactically ulterior for those locations that our founders left to be communicated for themselves in the founding locations in the plan. We're supposed to understand how I wanted to know. James Madison detailed they wanted nothing to do with all those multi-front fronts on civil rights, on human rights, on the human volume science. We are an individual human species body of individual bodies with the identity of nature demonstrating to us that it's generating group differences. Or when we are generating it ulterior from its method with positive and negative communications to us, it demonstrates with negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures. Group differences like male and female. We are shown there are completely different species bodies with these group differences. 2 eyes. We are shown 3 parts of time. There's the past. We are shown that it is invisible but still discernible to an extent. We are shown the future, the seasons, the value of the seasons. It is invisible but still discernible to an extent. The ones that aren't even here yet. We are shown that there is more than we know, that we could appreciate individually, grouped, and simultaneously to the extent we could. Increasingly. Just because this is how it shows us. There's one way we could know anyway. We could accord with our nature's complete identity of relationship to itself, also positive unto itself here. And or when it forces, we can ignore nature's system, but it forces negative value nature progressions, acts, and natures, and forced a special difference transfer. Earth has a special difference that nature shows us. So, Channel 3 News attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with others while pretending passions and emotions with former retired Wethersfield police chiefs and other police forms in courts and their family members and the sources of agencies and their family members. They're planting evidences with at and next to crime scenes, including campuses used for criminally foreign influence. A whole bunch of people with Wethersfield campuses have criminal foreign influences that were timed, other natures of organized crime at the same time with a principal upskirt nature that I caught them forcing first, with worse and more names involved then, and with families that were involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart, and the differences of the guilt of collusion /S there at the campuses or at other campuses. Increasingly, people from Harvard Hospital's Institute of Living Also with families involved with other triages. They have been planting evidences in those in the databases at campuses, intercities, with people at Hartford Hospital, and they have roles with untimely deaths years apart, murders and body dumping spots, and collusions with prisons like Sandy Hook Prison and intelligence families, foreign and domestic. They have roles with psychiatry, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, wrought, by the way, and with a doctor, with medical people and the systems, all the prisons. But Sandy Hook Prison has people from Pakistan involved with psychiatry and drugs and medicines crimes and organized crimes with every case that ever came before the courts and the prisons. And then hyper additionally with the state judicial branch offices and corrections offices of Connecticut that had collusion/us with the World Trade Center attack. And with many people with New Britain Superior Court and tied to them and their families, Hartford courts, and the Connecticut's District Court before the World Trade Center attack. Many people tied to retired Wethersfield police chiefs and their family and intimate ties, and mayors, multiple mayors in conjunctions to them. And like with the state, there's a Ruth that reportedly met, and she confirmed non-verbally. I know I had a conversation with her verbally. She confirmed and demonstrated she has collusions next to the state Board of Education with people. I don't know if she knows what the extent of it, or she realized, but like they're involved with organized crimes, with databases, and with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, with overt criminal enterprises and private ones, also with the DeMoro families named DeMoro and Scalora, and Mendez. There are Mendez police that attach little kids to fake locations, fake ties, fake natures of ties to other people and themselves. And at the Wethersfield police station, they faked conversations of me being there as a kid and speaking with them wasn't at all, and as an adult. Increasingly, a Kevin Dillon is also involved with that. And people have been planting evidences on all sides of my case that were brought up with confessions of the campuses I went that had from off them influences to put fake things in illusions and databases. And where it is recorded that everyone has a sense and sensibilities that are only capable of changing and faking what people say with short words regarding World Trade Center predicate acts. Get me off the fake conversations with Channel 3 News about the World Trade Center, please. They have roles with intelligence next to them, with various natures of organized crime since before I was a kid. And through my lifetime, they're increasingly intercities, involved with people next to the other networks too, who have a whole bunch of direct and indirect collusions with a bunch of people from other areas who planted evidence on my street since I was a kid, who have roles with Robert Rodriguez too, who brought up that's the way he brought up. I never had a conversation at all with him on my street in my life. He tried to have make it two times. He tried to time me when I was going to be coming home and then be walking right near a field near my house, and to try to make I didn't respond. Then I had him confirm it on Facebook. See, they took my Facebook page when I had things confirmed because I was next to the World Trade Center towers the morning of the attack and the night before it. I was next to it. And I was in the Ninth Circuit Court as an observer. The court itself had a proven sequence shift affected from inside the court to use the court's identity remotely. And names on both sides of that case in the court were used remotely by a Detective Samuda, who's one of the ones involved with sexual and medical offenders of kids intercities, through roles too, where people have even women judges. There are male and female women judges, black and white female judges, with some black KKK Latino theme next to Trinity College too, involved with an untimely death there. And a Joshua Stryker involved with identity theft, fraud, slams behind my back since I was a kid. And then sequence shifts as to his roles with the FBI director, Robert Luskin, too, with identity theft, fraud, slams with a Joshua Stryker and others at Trinity College, who also have on off the state judicial branch offices and the corrections offices, collusions with planting evidence on my street. I never saw on my street, my area, my life. But, people involved with the further, they have extended family members involved next to the World Trade Center, interstates and internationally timed. A Claudia Scalora, for example. She's one of the people who are recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed about people who have roles with home break-ins in my area, years apart. But also those people have roles with a whole bunch of different countries and intelligence families that used to live in my area who had collusions. And then even when they came back and they instilled, because they had lie progressions, because they had wire crime acts and methods, collusion slash yes, they're putting fake transcripts interagency. They're only capable, and they're putting delusions. There's a Leahy family with Hartford Hospital. A number of people with all kinds of different positions at Hartford Hospital have all kinds of scams with the mental health care side and with the triage side with the security throughout the whole thing though. In the parking garage, the people who their family members, their neighbors, the houses and businesses next to it, tomorrow's market where it was then and now next to Hartford Hospital where it is now. Other people involved with the FBI director and other agencies. Eric Jensen is also has state police with them. And Joe DeMorrow was recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, one of the ones involved with the home break-ins. And forced checked her and persuaded Heather Hansen, also with people with the courts, to have roles with home break-ins, car break-ins, changing and faking evidences, all natures of crime scenes, body dumping spots, sexual medical offenders of kids they have roles with, including women judges. Today, everyone speaks about crime. Was it crime or not? The courts already had collusions with all natures of crime scenes, through or even worse. We have to pay attention to what even had roles against all women, against black people as whites of eyes, and native. And so rather, there are things that are declassified that the experts on American history had obligations to bring forward, not to block it. Use their knowledge of good and evil to mistake criminal and seditious natures of intelligence. It blows my mind how people could speak about intelligence. We don't even have black people as whites of eyes attached to how the breaching method is assigned. We don't have how the breaching method is reassigned black people as whites of eyes. Not our founders. We have our founders blamed, and our founders directed us to not allow people to pretend that we know the names of our founders, plural, besides James Madison. See, they're being used to sense when they pretend things like that are debatable. They're being used to sense that there are self-value collusion /s having replaced how there were plural founders and they counter-extorted everyone to take part, forced them to take part with the Declaration of Independence, forced them to take part with the Constitutional Convention. Oh, we don't stand behind dictators. There was slavery still entrenched, northern colonies, southern colonies. Way worse than women's suffrage. Get back. Get to my paper, please. Pam Bondi and President Trump. Let me show you how to clean their minds and souls. In other words, we have to forget guilt and focus on the predicate acts. Forgiveness is because there's also a breaching method involved. If we're going to make syntax with guilt proper and correlative to that which is generating individual species bodies of individual bodies, so we can discern its individual identity of value progression, functional being hyper invisible but still discernible, generating all group differences or demonstrating when we use systems abridged. Where the Constitution stands abridged, descriptions of it require understanding how there was the same abridgment was already there. Since this is religious messengers too, we can discern. Even Jesus Christ did not have free speech, and many before him, but it hadn't always been that way. There are proofs that a breaching method realized that only locations, areas, and states could control the phenomenon of the names of countries. Inside this human species volume system that demonstrates with negative value nature progressions, action ages, when we like this breaching method forced the suburbs to be a landscape theater. There was slavery entrenched northern colonies, southern colonies, more than 13 too. We have to have that clearer than day. It's not because people didn't do their homework. The breaching method showed the people that, the experts who know the most, that they need to hide. How they had collusions with the preaching method showed them how to read. Everyone was child abused. Otherwise, this would have been known. Why and how James Madison is the only founder that we're supposed to pretend that, or allow, let alone experts to pretend, was our plural founder. We're supposed to understand how everyone was tortured, extorted, in fact, teenager, enslaved. And now then they were counter-extorted too at the Constitutional Convention. We're supposed to understand that because they left slavery entrenched. You don't vote on slavery. So you guys came through sick campuses. And you were child abused where nature was communicating things to you. And you were sensed if you tried to do it. And you were shown. Because this breaching method, and you realize that, in other words, no one knows how, no one has heard American history told wrong, so we understand it and we just ignore things. We have to get on the same page as the human species body of individual bodies plan. We're not supposed to have these economic treatments while we still have the predicate acts with facts method /S upon us. Please get me off the fake conversations with WFSB. And Connecticut Interbranch has been planting evidences with the FBI and with interstate courts. We're all named on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the courts and the intelligence tied to them, foreign and domestic. It is recorded how they're using directions to lie about how they have all the countries involved with the campuses together. UConn has a whole bunch of people tied to a Violet family that has roles with some black KKK, Confederate flag theme, Latino theme, intercultural, interreligious spots with multiple police departments, with intelligence families that used to live near me, like with one's name O'Brien Smith and Cololo, further involved with the police forging and switching names, the Wethersfield Police Department and Wethersfield Town offices, and have roles intercities, also with Hartford Hospital and the businesses next to it. They have a Leahy family that fake conversations with me. They have collusions with various natures of federal criminals and their family members and their educators. These are people that are involved with various natures of organized crimes, with the databases at campuses and with crime scenes, and with prosecutors and judges personally and professionally involved with multiple courts, personally and professionally, with the Leahy family and with the Lombardo family, with a whole bunch of people since I was a kid tied to them. They're faking ties to me with my neighbors and people planting evidence and confessions on my street. And I don't know me either, too. In other words, and my algebra class teacher with in high school, there was a Congressman Larson's kid, and it was me, and there was two other people on the other side of the classroom, Anthony Agman and a Mike Demain. Mike Demain and Anthony Agman have roles with some Jewish themes that my teacher, they apparently have roles with people with Israel too, and people from my area. I never saw them on my area, on my street, but people came to my street from other areas years apart. They have roles of multiple child abusers, leaders of kids years apart, sexual medical offenders of kids. My algebra class teacher made it Jew themed. She repeated about sexual things about a little girl that's apparently Jewish that used to live diagonally behind me. Her parents apparently lived, I don't know, I never met them before, and while my new neighbors were moving in, they arose with smoke going through my chimney, and time being standing on their chimney with a air blower around that time. They're trying to start fights though. There are some Mendez police that faked conversations with me at the police station, and they forced my Saudi ex to collusion /S with them with that. Also, people with the name Scalora did, and they knew her before me. And it's with the same house /S involved with them. I called them forcing child abusers, leaders, kids years apart, and with the principal being upskirt nature. They have more digital crimes at the Wethersfield police with him, and with their extended family members like a Phil Cololo and other people with them, with writing forensics, has collusions with intelligence families that used to live in my area and one's still living here, and their extended family members involved interstates and intercities and intra and intra campuses. Weathersfield Pizza and other businesses and houses next to the state judicial branch offices and people at the state judicial branch offices also have further digital crimes. The Facebook pages of New Britain Superior Court and of Weathersfield Police have further organized crimes and predicate acts with New Britain Superior Court, switching and forging names, rape threats, falsified police, switching names, falsified police reports, collusions, hyper additionally, extortion, torture, fact-cheating nature, slavery, physical slavery, all kinds of corruption. These are people also with the name DeMorrow and colonies tied to them. And the more people, more child abusers, leaders of the kids. And kids, through time, confessed a Lance Cuddy. And people with Lena's Pizza, a Daryl Sullivan, who sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has roles with the former FBI. He didn't say that. I don't know him. He's got roles with name switching, identity theft, fraud, slanders, with a bunch of people tied to him, and town lines, and people with the Hartford courts and New Britain Superior Court that affected confessions and requests to help from me with foreign and domestic, and people involved with child abusers with Dean Judd and his kid is involved also with various courts and FBI directors and other countries, foreign and domestic, military, intercities, and next to the body dumping spot of a reported serial killer. And that serial killer in his prison had collusions with the names next to that body dumping spot and with a principal child abuser in the prison, where they forced that first. They had roles forcing it with the people next to that location, which is also before the World Trade Center attack, with the people intercities and interstates and international time collusion /S. These are roles with like families that have been with Trinity College, UConn, and Central Connecticut State University, like with a Mark Violet and a Justa Kovinskis sought me out as strangers to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. They have various natures of federal evidences, crimes, identity theft, fraud, slanders with intelligence families that lived near me in the past and still. And I never had classes with them. These are people that are putting fake things in databases, increasingly with people that I never had classes with in my grammar school. Never saw around, don't know them. A Chet Casper, too. There's a Pat Vincent, too. These are with the Marines. These people I never had words of conversation with that sought me out to non-verbally demonstrate and kind of confirm things recorded, like even on Facebook. Facebook too has collusions with courts and with the World Trade Center predicate acts, and with uses of words like extremism to hide that. Their campuses are also criminally involved with them. Also, as is involved a method of having names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, and the courts and the interbranch put the same sequence shifts at the same time because there are more names involved. There's a screening of the breaching method, which is also involved. A breaching method is a scientific value that was replaced right from the actual communications of James Madison, if we observe. Beginning with why and how we are not supposed to entertain anyone besides James Madison pretended to be one of those known founders, plural. See, by doing that, by pretending it's debatable or teaching that the others were our founders, they are being used to sense and measure and maintain that the campuses A through Z have replaced what our founders communicated about how and why they had to counter-extort everyone, how and why they had to leave slavery entrenched anyway. They had to leave impositions upon all women anyway. They had to leave, which is impositions upon all humanity anyway, impositions upon all native. How and why they had, in other words, you guys stole what our founders left us to understand. For a reason, for being smart, wise, good. You can't be until you get this. Well, it's debatable. Fix the books, people. Watch.